Hello and welcome to the lesson on solving linear equations involving fractions. And we'll just start with our objective. And our objective is to solve linear equations involving fractions. So for our first example, we have 3 halves is equal to 5 plus x divided by 4. And we see in our directions we're asked to solve this and we're given a hint. It says we can use cross multiplication. Okay, and we learned about this procedure before. We know that if we have two ratios or two fractions set equal to one another, we can use our method of cross multiplication, where we multiply the numerator and denominator across the equation, and this numerator and the denominator across the equation, and we're left with 3 times 4 equals 2 times 5 plus x. Okay, so we've rewritten this ratio horizontally. Okay, and now we can use our procedures from before to simplify 3 times 4, and that's just computing the product, which is 12, and that is equal to, on this side, we're going to use our distributive property to simplify the right side. And 2 times 5 gives us 10. 2 times x gives us 2x. All right. Now, as before, our goal is to get our variable by itself, to isolate our variable. So I already have 2x over here on the right side. So I'm going to leave it on the right side, and I'm going to undo this addition by 10 by subtracting 10. Now, if I subtract 10 from the right side of my equation, in order to keep it balanced, I must do the same thing to my left side. So I'll subtract 10 on both sides. And when I do that, 12 minus 10 leaves me with 2 on the left. And then I have on the right 10 minus 10, which is 0, plus 2x is just 2x. Okay. So now my last step, I almost have my variable by itself, but I see that x is being multiplied by 2. So to undo this multiplication, I'm going to divide both sides by 2. And when I do that, the 2 times 2 divided by 2 gives me 1. 1 times x is just x. They cancel. Then on the left side, I have 2 divided by 2, which is equal to 1. So my answer is x equals 1. Okay. Now let's look at our next example. It asks us to solve the equation. We have x divided by 10 minus 1 half equals 6. And again, we're asked to solve, but our hint here says we cannot use cross multiplication. So I'm looking at this equation and I'm wondering why I can't use cross multiplication as I did in the first case. And I see the reason is I have this fraction minus this fraction on one side of my equation. So I can't cross multiply on the same side of the equation. That is not going to give me something equivalent on the left side. I can't simplify this left side in that manner. But what I notice is I have a number here being this number here is subtracted from this number. So I'm going to go about solving it in the same way. So if I want to get this x by itself, I'm going to choose to add 1 half to both sides. Okay, so I'm just treating 1 half like any other number. This is also a number. Okay, so if I add 1 half to both sides, that leaves me with, on the left, x over 10. I'm just going to write this up here. We have x over 10, and that's going to be equal to 6 plus 1 half. Now I want to simplify this right side. So if I have 6 plus 1 half, I can do this in two different ways. I can write this as a decimal, but I like fractions. But in order to add 6 and 1 half, I need a common denominator. So my least common denominator is 2 because 6 over 1 is the same thing as 6, and then 6 over 1 and 1 half have a least common denominator of 2. So 6 is equal to 12 over 2. Okay. So now I can combine 12 halves and 1 half, and if I have 12 halves and I add to it 1 half, I have a total of 13 halves. Okay. So on my left I have x over 10 equals 13 halves. All right, now I have a situation similar to my original situation where it looks like I can cross multiply, but what I'll do is save myself some time because I can see that to get x by itself, if I can just undo this division by 10, then I've solved the equation. So instead of cross multiplying in this instance, I'm just going to multiply both sides by 10. So if I multiply by 10 on the left, and then I multiply by 10 on the right, my 10's cancel. 10 times x divided by 10 is just x, so they cancel. And then 13 times 10 is 130 divided by 2. So I have x equals 130 divided by 2. Now I can simplify this because 130 is an even number, so that's divisible by 2. So half of 13 is going to be 6.5. So I know half of 130 will be 65. So my solution is x equals 65. Okay, so different from our first one. In our original problem, we used the method of cross multiplication. We could do that. In this problem, we cannot because we have two fractions on one side of the equation. So we're not going to cross multiply without having some common denominator. Okay, we just use our properties of equality, and we'll see how that is exactly what we're doing when we use the method of cross multiplication.